Hi, this is Barry Fitzgerald, and I'll see you in the shadows.
Your source for everything paranormal. Para X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Welcome to another Monday night here on the Shadows Radio. I am Rebecca, and our guest tonight is amazing, and she's excellent. And when you're done with this show, you're going to go back and download all the podcasts from the time that she's been on our show before. So I'm just guaranteeing that. But in order to do that, you have to know where our shows are. So you can always go to theshadowsradio.com, and there's a large collection of on-demand links. You can either go to the one on the right-hand side and download directly from our site, or go to the left-hand side and find any one of your podcast streaming services listed there. And you can find us pretty much everywhere, because I would like to make sure that everyone everywhere knows everything that I'm doing, or something like that. I'm not sure which. But regardless of all that, after you're done with that, tune into tonight's show. We're going to have a great conversation about grisly death. Or something. I don't know. But my guest tonight is the one, the only, Mari. Hi, Mari.
Hey, Rebecca. How's it going?
Excellent. So just a precursor, Mari is in the land of the storm knocked over my cell tower, and I may or may not be able to talk to you the whole show. So if it gets a little wonky, it was not the robots. I promise.
Yeah, that's the theory, at least.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on.
I've sacrificed a few co-hosts to robots before, but tonight we're just going to blame it on the, powers that be or something. So for those of you who are not familiar with Mari, she's been on our show before talking about some of her amazingly lovely graphic novels that she did about two ghost hunting dogs, which is always fun. So those interviews are awesome. So we're not really going to dive into those tonight. We're going to go and be adult ghost hunters tonight. If that's
woohoo, adulting.
Yes, adult level ghost hunting or something. I don't know why people trust me with these words. Okay, so
it makes me giggle.
Yeah, I never know. But
especially when Rebecca's in the mix and she says adult level.
Adult level? No, I got nothing. I can't even make that sound cool. I'm terrible. I'm terrible at this game. But, all right. So, tonight we're going to talk about 10 gruesome deaths that have actually, over time, been attributed to ghosts. Which is always a fun thing to talk about, people getting maimed and murdered and, ripped apart. And then blamed on ghosts.
Yes, this is very intriguing to me.
Well, it's one of those things. It's like you have to know where your ghosts are coming from when they maim and murder people. So
this must be
good.
One hell of a energy too.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you remember that movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, and it took him like everything he had to move the stupid penny. These people are murdering. Those are some powerful ghosts.
I need to dive into this because I'm dying to figure out what the theory is.
All right. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Hammersmith Ghost. So he's from the early 19th century in West London. And there was a terrifying apparition that was bouncing up and down the streets of London, haunting one of the area's graveyards. Local people reported seeing a figure in white with a glass eye and horns who would emerge suddenly from the spooky shadows, wailing and moaning and writhing at passerbys. A pregnant woman claimed to have been attacked physically, and a wagon driver abandoned his passengers and a horse in fear at the sight of the specter. The news spread that the ghost may have been that of a man who was recently killed himself before being buried in the churchyard's consecrated ground. The reports got so bad that armed patrols were sent out to arrest the ghost. I don't know how one arrests a ghost, but they tried. An excise officer by the name of Officer Smith found the ghost and encountered it in person. He demanded to know the identity of the apparition and got no response, shockingly. He fired a shot from his gun, fearing for his life and afraid to be the next victim. Unfortunately, there was no ghost that lay dead in the graveyard, but a man named Thomas Millwood was a plasterer wearing a white cloth that signified his trade. The murder trial of Officer Smith and Thomas Millwood was one of the most unusual in history, where Smith was sentenced to death. However, he claimed that the spirit stood in front of Millwood to block his sight so that he would shoot at the spirit, and then jumped out of the way just in time to shoot the poor passerby in the white coat. And just to add insult to injury, poor Thomas Millwood's spirit cannot rest easily. So the day after he was killed, his body was brought to the Black Lion public house, and he was kind of laid there for a while until someone could come and claim him. And it's believed that he's still there to this day, whispering in patrons' ears, banging on walls, making loud footsteps, and being kind of generally pissy. So,
I guess I would too. Like a stalker.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
If I was just live in, talk on, bed.
Yeah. So this Hammersmith Ghost, I don't know. So supposedly he's walking around here with his basically every quintessential Charles Dickens ghost, personification that you can think of. He's got the wailing and the moaning and the white sheet and all this kind of stuff. And
yeah, I literally picture that. Like I've sat into scenarios. You said 1800.
Early 1900. Yep. Or 19th century. Sorry. Yeah. So early 1800s. A lot of super.
You got me?
Yep. You're there. Good.
Okay. I mean, the early 1900s. Still a great deal of superstition. And you get, somebody who's a little broken in the head, doesn't take care of themselves, starts ranting and raving. And if they jump out of shadows like they're prone to do, I could imagine how lore and legend could grow around.
I love at the end there where Officer Smith decides that his defense is going to be, I didn't shoot that guy. I shot the ghost that was standing in front of that guy. That looks exactly like that guy.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I don't even know what to think about this. This is such a crazy story. Because you said at first this ghost was hopping around up and down the street. I guess that would be characteristic of hopping in front of a victim and then out of the way as soon as the bullet was fired.
Yeah, like, you can't get me. Like a carnival ride or a carnival game, you have to knock in those little clowns or something.
Yeah, was he going back and forth across the street like a duck?
Yeah. Well, I guess if you're a ghost, there's not much else to do.
I mean, I could see how you could try to run in front of ghosts and go with that fever and that fervor of that crowd mentality, when they kind of whip each other up into a fury.
Mm-hmm.
But, part of me, this might be the cynic in me, because there's a little bit of that. And part of me does see that as you have superstition around you to make an excuse to get out of something. But then here's the whole thing, though. Why would he shot this guy in the first place? Did he even know him? Or was he so whipped up into a frenzy that he actually was shooting at a ghost?
That's what I'm thinking. It's definitely the latter one. I'm feeling like he was on patrol to look for the ghost. He saw a white figure out of the corner of his eye or something. He turned around and shot first, and then looked at it later. And then
that sounds so much more plausible.
Yeah.
Because I feel like at some point in his life, especially in that type of trade where it's basically a beat cop, he's out on the street walking around. I feel like he's seen one or two plaster workers in his life. So
possibly,
if he laid good eye contact on the guy, he would have noticed that it wasn't a threat. But like you said, perspective and stuff, and then try to pass it off. Then try to make it sound like it was much more benign than what really happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with the ghost jumped out of the way.
Yeah,
Just completely blocked this
I don't know
guy.
why the ghost would jump out of the way. I mean, the bullet's going to go right through me, so what's the point in expending that energy? But still, let's roll with it. The ghost jumped out of the way.
Because that's funnier. That's a better defense than I shot through the ghost and just happened to hit this other guy that looked exactly like the ghost. Like, that defense doesn't necessarily fly. So, you know.
Well, maybe they didn't find any ectoplasm on the bullet later, so they ruled that theory out, too.
Like, is there residual ghost goo if it goes through a ghost?
In the 20s, I would say yes.
Okay.
Could you actually shoot the ghost?
If you actually shot through a ghost, would there be ghost
out of the way?
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah, okay. That's just, I figured we'd start with the good one, you know. All right, so how about Alcatraz? Have you ever been to Alcatraz?
Very, very, very young when I went to Alcatraz. So I have small memories, like little bits and pieces, not even of the whole trip.
Mm.
And then, you know, you blend on top of that the movie So I Married an Axe Murderer.
There you go. That's a good way to remember that.
Yeah, so you kind of, you know, that was an old movie, so those scenes kind of like melt into my childhood memories.
That works. Okay, so when you take a tour of Alcatraz and you ask the tour guides if they have any ghosts, they will tell you no. At least they did on my tour, because I asked a lot of times, and I was told no a lot of times. But Alcatraz is supposedly one of the most haunted spots in the United States. And there is a ghost that haunts cell block D, which is actually known as the Hole. So the Hole is the coldest part of the prison, and it was solitary confinement. So it's like these big, dark cells that have a sink, a toilet, a dim light bulb that's actually turned on and off from outside the cell. So the inmates have no choice. They got mattresses at night that were taken away during the day, no reading material. And so they basically got nothing but this big, dark room for most of the day. There was also one at the very end called the Oriental, which was a steel sensory deprivation chamber with a hole at the bottom for waste. So there was not even a toilet in that one. It was literally just a steel box that you hung out in.
Ew.
And in the 1940s, when the prison was kind of at its heyday, there was a report of a ghostly man wearing 19th century prison clothing that would kind of wander up and down outside the cells of the Hole. And they blamed this ghost for the death of a prisoner. So right after being locked in the Hole, the inmate began screaming that there was somebody with glowing eyes trapped in there with him. The guards ignored him as he screamed long into the night about this glowing-eyed man that was in the prison cell with him. And then finally, in the middle of the night, an eerie silence fell. The man just stopped screaming. The next day, the guards discovered that the convict had been strangled to death, with the handprints on his throat were bright red and fresh, as if the person had just lifted their hands. Wow. Some say that the guards finally snapped and took the ultimate step to stop the screaming. However, the investigation showed that the cell door was actually never opened. So the guard would have had to have been in the cell with him the whole time. So they are blaming it on that 19th century prisoner who wandered up and down the corridors, who then killed this guy, which is kind of terrifying, honestly.
That's very, very interesting. I mean, because ever since I can remember, I was always interested in the paranormal. So I remember one of the biggest feelings of those scattered memories of Alcatraz is by that feeling that this place is haunted. And like you, I did ask her, and that's one of my main memories. We were in one of the long main cell blocks, and some demonstration of how they open all the doors at once. And I lost them, and they didn't just shut me down. Of course, I was a kid. They were playing with me. They kind of quietly said something. Everybody, I was way too shy to do that back then. But I remember that being my main feeling place. This place is definitely haunted, and I was looking in all the nooks and crannies to see if I could see something that nobody else was going to notice. Mm-hmm. So Alcatraz has always been a place of interest, and there's a lot more than just the history of that jail. There's Civil War history, there's Native American history on that island, and I had heard this story in a very, very different way. that it's actually a demon in the cell. So to hear that they thought it was actually a spirit that scared him to death and possibly even strangled him, it brings in a whole new angle to it. It makes it, for me, a little bit more believable. You have tortured souls. You have people that earned the right to be in Alcatraz, and some of them died there, and they weren't good people. I'm much more inclined to believe there is an angry ghost that figured out how to make human contact than a demon. That's just me. I know a lot of people believe that the demon is what brought on the bad negative feeling. So, I mean, there's valid theory on either side.
Yeah, I'd never heard the demon.
An extremely interesting story, though.
Yeah. So I found another version of the same story that basically said the next morning after they opened the cells to do a head count, and they'd already carted away the body of the strangled convict, there was actually too many convicts in the row at lineup, and the recently strangled convict was in the row, as well as somebody that nobody recognized. And then when the guards went to count again, both figures vanished. So I don't know if that's just exaggeration on somebody's part when they said, hey, let me take this story and build onto it a little bit, but it's an interesting take on the exact same, it's the same story told somewhat a little bit of a different way. But I think the demon aspect that you're talking about is interesting, because that glowing eyes thing, I mean, that to me sticks out as kind of an important piece, like if it was just a regular old pissed off inmate, why would he have glowing eyes, and what would he be doing to scream?
You're about or they fall into that type of description category when these people describe their experiences with them. I mean, you're talking about a place that has history going back how many hundreds of years, I have no idea, but into the Native American era before European white people started settling the area. So it could be elemental, it could be anything, really.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are open to that theory. I mean, water. It's got, I think, if I remember right, there's a lot of limestone on that island, but it's got all of those beautiful earmarks that we all look for in a great haunting. I don't doubt it for a minute. I choose to read these types of stories strictly for the reason because I love to have a little mystery in my life. I'm normally a skeptical person, but you're talking about a prison story that could have been embellished, but there is a little bit of underlying truth to it. And we all know that. We all know it came from somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the idea that it's not necessarily, like, I almost want to say that prisoner that they were seeing ahead of time was a previous victim rather than a person, the actual perpetrator of the crime. Like, for me, I feel like he's sitting there going, he shows up, he's a warning, and then at the very end when they all line up, now both of them are at the end of the line, and then both of them disappear, I don't know. I feel like that's maybe it's a little too cinematic, but it's pretty, I don't know. It's pretty interesting. It's
kind of cool, though. Yeah. I mean, hearing stories I hadn't heard them before, and that's the rounds up. And it's another thing that doesn't surprise you, though, because how many times have we heard stories about visitations of loved ones?
Yep.
How many of our own friends are in this field and ghost hunting for that very reason, because they saw a loved one after that person's death? So it's one of the more common things that happen. And who am I to say it didn't happen here? But, I mean, and you're talking about an area has all the monikers of channeling and concentrating energy, kind of like a little battery or a powerhouse. I don't know if it actually can strangle the person, but I'm sure it could at least twist his mind enough to do something to himself.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, so we talk about some of the markers of a haunting. So you mentioned that. I mean, obviously it's an island, so it's surrounded by water, and it's water in motion too, which is like a really good thing.
Yes, salt water, which is a better conductor than clean water.
Yep, and then you've got all the human suffering from the Native Americans who took the island over, the actual prisoners. You've got the families that were there. So there's a lot of human energy there as well. And then I don't know what the island's actually made of. So I don't know if it's limestone or not.
I can't remember, and I don't know, of course, I want to say, but I could be mixing that fact. So sometimes we get these types of facts for different buildings. Sometimes it's melt together.
Yeah.
But you do have a lot of excavated stone structure where they drilled into the bedrock from the Civil War days forward. They had a too. And so the Alcatraz that you see is built on an older prison. And as far as I know, they don't really show you that site on tours because it's not necessarily in as good of condition. But I have not looked into that for the longest time, so I can't say that is fact. But there is a lot of suffering having happened on that island. It's also an island that's in a drab and dreary area with a lot of bad weather, and it's kind of a negative place.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about a lot of people who have been sentenced to death or to life in this cold, clammy, dreary place they're never going to get out of. There's negativity hanging in the air. And I'm a big believer that our own energies, our own negativity, or our own positivity discharge the air around us, and it does affect me. And I've now been able to say, so you're talking about a really concentrated place.
Yeah.
It's people. I know, like, I have so maybe I'm just because I'm typically the big skeptic of the group. But I'm totally willing to believe the story.
Yeah, so I looked it up real quick while you were talking, and it looks like the island itself is made of blue sandstone and granite, and then all the buildings were actually locally quarried blue sandstone from Angel Island. So no limestone, but sandstone's still pretty porous and conductive material.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Your granites and your quartzes are supposedly recorders of energy.
So it looks like they made a perfect little ghost time bomb there. All right, so let's talk about another murderous spirit here. In 2013, villagers were living in a Tambon Ta Sawang. Sorry, I probably just butchered that one. It's a Taiwanese village, a village in Thailand. They were terrorized by the ghost of the widow who was believed to have killed 10 men in a single month. All the men died under mysterious circumstances, many while sleeping, some apparently dropping dead while walking, and all declared by the doctor to have died from respiratory failure. None of the men had previously shown any signs of being ill. They had shown no previous symptoms of any kind of heart conditions, nor did they have any kind of family history with these problems. So the villagers hired a spirit medium who said that the widow ghost was to blame for the deaths. The medium then recommended that each resident hang a red shirt outside their home so the spirit would be repelled, especially if they had only a single son, since they were the ones most at risk for a ghostly visit. In 2018, a different Thai district was terrorized in the same way, and villagers there believe that the spirit that was repelled from the original village is now showing up in this second village. They've tossed around 3 different theories. The first one is that she is getting vengeance for her dead husband, who passed away before she did and left her alone. The second one is that she's looking for a new husband, and the third one is that she's just pissed off and terrorizing single men. So I kind of like the idea that she's on the prowl for a new husband, and I guess she's being a ghost. She just kind of overpowers them and just I don't think she means to. I'm going to go with that one.
Strength. With that. This is actually quite interesting. Have there was any background information on any kind of like studies about poisonings or air quality?
Not in this article. I'm sure if we Googled a little bit, I'm sure somebody proposed that at least. But the 2 villages are 650 miles apart.
Huh. I mean, it's quite interesting how the story kind of has a parallel to a biblical.
There's a biblical buildings. Zombie ghost woman?
Yeah, not that there's ghosts, but people who are bringing off this evil spirit or I don't know what it was there to kill the first one. Paint red on.
Oh, the firstborn son, all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems almost like one of those biblical plagues.
Yeah, no, that's true. I didn't even think about that, but yeah. So the idea that they had to paint the red markers on the door so that they would be passed over when the plague came.
Yeah.
I just think they should kind of feel bad if they push the ghost to another village, like.
Yeah. And they're wondering, and so when did the first one happen?
It was 2013, the first village. It lasted for 1 month, and then they hired the spirit medium who told them about the red shirts. After another month, there were no more incidents, and then in 2018, it started happening in a different village.
That's crazy. Yeah, that just seems weird. I want to know if they started hanging shirts in the other village. But it's interesting to me that there are still villages that would hire mediums to do this kind of thing because we live in such a technological world that we don't even think about this. But there are places in the world that our lives, as we know, our normal doesn't even reach. And they're still doing things like consulting mediums and hanging red shirts on their doors. And it seems to have worked, which is another strange thing, and that it may have traveled to another village. Huge, curious about is if this other village did the same thing, and if it seems to have stopped.
Unfortunately, no follow-up available, but that is a good point. It's like, okay, if you guys hung red shirts, would that work? Or is it something like, okay, the red shirts worked once, next time we need to move to a different color shirt or something? Or, I don't know, not to be funny, but like pants or something, you know what I mean? Like something a little different because clearly she learned from the shirt thing. But I want to know what happened to her husband. That's the piece of the story that's kind of missing. So it says that her husband passed away first, which is why she was being this vengeful widow ghost. But it doesn't say
the curiosity of backstory. Her, what is going on with her?
Exactly. And is she was she a villager? Did she just happen to end up in this village? I feel like there's more story that needs to happen.
Much more. I feel like this is like a job for a Hollywood producer or writer to go over there and create a great story for us.
I know. This could be a good like series.
Entertain me.
So it says, okay, so but the village.
This is leans to that theory that they're saying that this ghost moved on. We're talking about this over the day. We have these weird rules that seem to be widely accepted among here in the United States among our paranormal groups, which is ghosts are confined to spaces for some reason. Either it's a few rooms in a house, or it's one that property and nothing else. And I've always heard we're talking about ethereal energy, and we're putting parameters on something that we have no ability to quantify. We're out there saying there's something out there trying to get science's attention, trying to get science to put more time into this and help explain what's going on. But yet we're so quick to put these rules on spirits and what they are. It doesn't know any of our idiosyncrasies. And they're saying, well, this ghost traveled to another village because there's no longer intelligence here. Whereas we would immediately understand it. Our ghosts stuck in one little area. They do not travel.
Well, this one traveled a very far distance, and according to the South China Morning Post, the second village, which was the Thai city of Nakhon Ratchasima, and I butchered that one, also hung red shirts, and they also hung a list of family members' names on the shirts claiming no men live here, and then they would list the names. And then they would list any male or female, any single male in the family as a dog or cat. And it says that actually only 2 men in that village died.
issues.
So the red shirt worked a second time.
Interesting. I would love to see what medical studies are being done on these people and is being looked into, because I'm sure that they have local government looking, like, this has piqued some interest around there.
It is very interesting. The fact that the fact that the villages are so far away and that they use the same method to, quote, end the thing, I don't know. I find it odd. There's a picture here of a family literally has a shirt on a hanger hanging from their front porch.
Wow.
Just a red T-shirt on a hanger with a little note on it that says, whatever it says. I can't read it because it's a little picture, but that's just...
On the flip side of this, you're talking about a very, very, very specific way of dying that is repeating itself strangely in these villages. So even that side of it is alarming and scary, because respiratory illness, just suddenly stop breathing or having some sort of sudden respiratory distress, that's not a normal thing.
Yeah,
so to have multiple villagers die of that.
Yes, for supposedly, perfectly healthy kind of men or whatever that they supposedly were, all these, fairly healthy. It says they had no sign of other issues or any family history. So.
And we aren't even talking about heart attacks, which do sometimes attack perfectly healthy people, and we know that and accept that as these tragic things. Respiratory illnesses, to take somebody's life that suddenly out of nowhere, is strange and rare in of itself, and then to have that many happen.
Yeah, and in their sleep too. So it's not like they were out running and they,
almost like the old hag syndrome, where the force is on their chest and preventing them from breathing.
So the widow ghost of Thailand has struck, which is just kind of scary. Now I kind of want to hang a T-shirt outside my house, just in case. There's so many ghosts, I don't even know which ones to talk about. So in Bavaria, the Hinterkaifeck farm, which is kind of the best name for a farm I've heard in a long time. But in 1922, this homestead was the site of a grisly murder that would baffle German police and never really be solved. The Gruber family lived there, they were social outcasts because the husband was a notorious wife-beater who'd had an incestuous relationship with his own daughter. But nevertheless, the events that ensued on the farm shocked the local community. In late 1921, the Gruber's maid Maria reported hearing disembodied footsteps and voices around the home. She left her position abruptly, afraid the farm was haunted. So she up and left and quit her job. 6 months later, the father, Andreas, saw footprints in the deep snow surrounding the house leading from the woods to the farm. There were no footprints to show a return journey. Andreas carried out an immediate search, but no one was found in or around the home. That night, Andreas, too, heard the strange noises in the attic. He says he found nothing and no one hiding there. The events, however, took an even stranger turn, and the next morning, an unfamiliar newspaper was lying on the front porch. I don't know about you, but if a ghost left me a newspaper, I'd kind of feel like I was at the Hilton.
Yes. Turn down service.
Yes. Excuse me, sir. Did you return my my dry cleaning for the day? No. Okay. So after he found the newspaper, one of the house keys actually disappeared. He saw scratches on the tool shed that looked as if somebody had been trying to pick a lock. Some days later, the townsfolk began to wonder where the Grubers had gotten to. They hadn't shown up for market day, nor had they been to church. So someone was sent to the farm to check on the family and made a grisly discovery in the barn. All 4 members of the family were stacked on top of each other, bleeding and covered in hay. In the house, the rest of the family and the replacement maid were also found dead. Although there were signs of strangulation, the instrument believed to have caused their death was actually a pickaxe found in the locked tool shed. However, there were a bunch of complicating factors. Every one of the bodies had been covered up in one way or another, and while the date of death was found to be March 31st, the neighbors had seen smoke from the farm's chimney after that date. There was evidence in the house of meals having recently been eaten, a bed that had been slept in, and the farm animals had still been fed. There was no evidence of any theft, jewelry, or coins, or out of the house. So was it a vengeful spirit that killed the groupers? Was it a grisly home invasion that still managed to feed their cows? The police never solved the murder, closed it as unsolvable, and the local townspeople like to blame spirits.
Wow. I mean, well, it's a very creepy story, obviously. And to be out of town to find at that house, it's going to be shocking to a little bit anyway. But I feel like this story might be a bit of a reach. It sounds to me like, and somebody probably stayed there. It sounds like probably stayed there and kept warm and moved on.
But they fed the dog or the cows. Like, why would you? If you just killed somebody and you were squatting in their house, would you have fed the cow? Like,
don't.
I mean, I don't know why a ghost would have fed the cow either, but yeah.
More than 4 people, because they're 4 in the barn, and I don't know how many were in the house.
Yeah, it just said the remainder of the family. It doesn't say exactly how many.
Yeah, stack their bodies, cover them up. All of this is stuff that humans do, not spirits.
Yeah.
Cover them up and take care of themselves and live in the home and leave evidence of living in the home, and then just disappear, I guess. Everything about it seems like much more of a reach than some crazy person murdered that family and probably stayed over a few days, it being an older date in a village where things don't move as quickly as they do today. They probably knew they had a few days before they could hole up. But I mean, that's immediately where my mind goes. That's kind of like one of those common sense, easiest answers got to be the right answer kind of things in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's kind of a hard stretch for a ghost in this case. But as I was reading through this story, I'm like, this sounds like a James, what's it? I'm trying to remember the horror director's name. But, yeah, I don't know. It just sounds like one of those horror movies that I've seen recently. It's just like, I can't remember. Somebody can yell at me in the chat room what that guy's name was. But, yeah. So I did a little digging on this one, and it said that there was actually one suspect by the name of Lorenz Schlitzbauer, who had actually been a suitor of Victoria's and had been rebuffed by the father. And there was rumor that little Joseph, who was the youngest son of the daughter, who apparently was widowed with 2 children. So that was some of the people living in the house were grandchildren. So some of them were, so little Joseph possibly was either the incestuous love child of Andreas, the father, and Victoria, or Schlitzbauer's son. However, Schlitzbauer was known to have jealous fits of rage, and he could have set this all up that way.
Wow.
But again, at the same time, that doesn't explain the footsteps going to the house. Would think, where was this person hiding if they were actually hiding in the house? The reported noises, the maid that ran away thinking the house was haunted. So,
which all happened in the span of a few short months, which makes you think that there might have been some sort of stalker squatter in the house. It doesn't sound like there could have been, but from what the article is stating, it doesn't sound like this was hauntings and events that have been going on for years. It sounds like it all was just kind of like the Bell Witch. It just started and ended in a period of time.
Yeah.
But with this scenario, I feel that you don't want people to be able to check you and instead walk your own tracks. These are things that a lot of those people knew. And you're talking about country folk, hunters and trappers and farmers. And I can't buy it being a spirit at all. I mean, I'm sure the village needed some sort of way to have closure.
Yeah.
Like Alcatraz, but I'm not willing to believe that.
All right, so we'll chalk this one.
Which makes no sense in itself.
No, it's fine. Everyone has their limits, so this one goes beyond the limit.
Apparently, my line is somewhere in between those too.
So grizzly murder, not so much. Demon haunting Alcatraz, I'm in. Okay, you got it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the aged laborer, who also comes to us from 19th century England. And in Bristol in 1841, an inquest was held to the death of Patrick Hayes, who was known as the aged laborer, who neighbors said had fallen down the stairs and just died. Okay, well, I mean, if he was aged, I would say he probably died. So the wife of the landlord of the inn in which he died, Mary Croker, gave testimony that she had heard the sound of the deceased as he fell down the stairs. She shouted out, asking who had fallen, and then the reply in the deceased voice says, "It is me, and I am dead." In her questioning under oath, Mary Croker informed the coroner that the man had clearly seen the house's resident ghost, which is a lady wearing a silken gown, who had a habit of killing former lodgers by scaring them to death. She had 2 or 3 former, quote, suspicious deaths on her books already. And while police were trying to pin all of these on Mary Croker herself, they are now legendarily chalked up to the woman in the silk gown who likes to scare men at the top of the steps.
I mean, I feel like if there was any story we discussed that would be acceptable as a ghost killing somebody, it would be frightening at the top of the stairs, because they really just have the energy. They just have to be enough to get them to fall, stumble, trip. And this is actually one of my fears when we ghost hunt. One of the few, I think I have 2 real fears ghost hunting. One is that some dumb ghost materializes while I'm in the restroom. I don't know why. I just feel like when I'm by myself in a vulnerable situation, you better back the hell off.
Yes.
Do not try to scare me.
I shall pee in peace. Yeah.
Yes, we must pee in peace. There is a border of protection in this room. My other fear is when you're walking in these old rickety buildings, that you're standing somewhere not aware of your surroundings, and you get scared and you take your down the stairs and kill yourself.
Yeah.
No best friend. She had this fear. I used to. We never went anything when we were teenagers, because she always was afraid that she would fall and somebody would skate over her fingers and cut her fingers off. And what happened was a few years ago in the NHL, some dude fell on the ice, and another hockey player skated over him and cut his fingers off.
Oh.
And what are we looking at now? We're looking at a story of a man who supposedly got scared and fell down the stairs.
Like, in a place where 2 or 3 other people had already done that.
Yeah. And that seems like the most believable way a ghost could actually kill a person, is put them in a vulnerable situation where they're doing the work themselves.
Well, I got to be honest with you. When we go ghost hunting, I will never round a corner first. I will be at the end of the line till the end of the day, going up and down stairs, whatever. I will never go around a corner first. And that's exactly why. Because I'm terrified that I'm going to round the corner and there's going to be someone standing there staring at me. And I'm going to panic. And then I'm going to turn around and smash into somebody. And it's going to be a whole big thing. So I can totally feel this one. Like, definitely.
I can understand where you're coming from on any ghost hunt, whether I really don't like it or not. I hate having my back to an open space. And one of my subconscious thoughts, I hate investigating how bad it feels being exposed. And I know that there's a lot of ghost hunters that feel that way. Mm-hmm. And I can work.
Yeah.
Ghosts. And just like you, I'm not proud in the head. I remember investigating at Penhurst, and there was just this vibe. I've been to Penhurst more than once with you, without you, some other times.
You went without me?
We've all been there. Yeah, I've been there once without you.
Oh.
I know, I'm such a cheater. And it didn't affect me as much as it did this one night. And one of our other friends, Eric, wanted me to stand at one end of the hall while he stood at the other. And I literally looked him in the eye and said no. I never say no. I'll walk off by myself. I sometimes will have the heebie-jeebies, but I can usually push myself through them. That night at Penhurst, I didn't want my back to an open door. I didn't want to lead the line. I didn't want to be in the back of the line either. I don't know what you think in there. That's crazy.
Well, I figure we've already been in the space where our back is to.
Steps.
I mean, my theory is that we've already been in the space that the back is to, so unless the ghost is like doing like the Pink Panther behind us, we've already cleared that space. So we're fine.
Yeah, see, I don't believe it. They know how to seek. They'll come up behind me.
All right, so
No.
Vicky V from Dark Sun Rising in the chat room goes, I don't mind being first. I hate being last. All right, so we'll go Vicky, Mary, myself, and we're good. We're the perfect team.
Yes. Well, and I can do the first, just not all the time. Sometimes I can get a little too creeped out. It doesn't happen often, though. But yes, that one place, I wouldn't go more than 5 feet away from any one of you guys.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times where it's just the energy has just been so intense. Even if nothing is happening, like you can just feel the vibe, and you're like, I'm just gonna stick close to whoever is closest to me. I don't know who you are. I'm gonna hope you're not the ghost,
Yes.
and just like cling to that person and be like, yeah.
Exactly, and I am as psychic as a box of rocks. But for some reason, I get vibes every now and then, and this is what a lot of people do, and I think that's why I do believe when you hear people like Chip Coffey and Scotty Rorick talking that everybody is psychic, just how much you're open to it and how much you've honed to learn your skills.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Because here I am knowing I am not psychic in any way, shape, or form, but I'll get the heebie-jeebies like no other in a place. And sure enough, we come home and we have one of our investigations, but we have more evidence. So it seems to be and this is something that we all, because it's something we all experience. When we talk to everybody, the experience is the same. When we start, it's nothing, and then the longer we do it, the more we feel.
Mm-hmm.
And more these weird spaces, and we get drawn to this. So I do believe, again, this is about energy, and talks to each other, and it flows through all of us. And sometimes stuff crosses boundaries that we didn't know was possible to cross, to communicate with each other, to reach out to each other in an energy way. And that's what I think is so fascinating about it all.
Definitely. And if you want to read more about the Scared to Death Fatal Encounters with the Ghost, I actually found that story in a Sheffield Hallam University article written by David Clark called Scared to Death Fatal Encounters with Ghosts, which is actually 9 pages of people who actually have been written up as by coroners as having been scared to death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm going to do some digging deeper into that concept, and maybe we'll talk about that at a future show, but I guess it actually is a lot more prevalent than we think. And it's not, I'm looking at these here, and they're not all 1800s, like, kind of before modern science. The last one that's listed on here is from 2006. So,
I've heard about that phenomenon, and yeah, I mean, I can see it, where your body goes into such shock it just ceases to. To me, anything's possible. I mean, I remember when I was a teenager, and I was raised in the church, and one of the church brethren, he was old, but he wasn't. He was in his mid-20s. I was maybe 13 at the time. And he went home after work, was talking to his wife, sat down in the recliner, and died. Nobody knows why. Autopsy doesn't show anything. We just shut down sometimes. And that is the reality of a living organism. And we as human beings have these innate, inherent things that drive us to try to find out why. And we haven't found out why about everything yet. And they're always going to be out there for us to dig for. We try to understand that, and what do we do when we can't fully understand that? We put our superstitions against it. So it makes these great stories. It makes paranormal incidents that we are totally willing to believe come to light. It makes some things that we can explain come to light and show clearly how things. a looking glass for various examples of how we as humans function.
That's very well said, and a very great end to our story, because we're actually out of time. So we blew through this.
Oh,
one.
wow.
Yeah. So we kind of voted on the, let's see, so the Thai widow, did we say yay or nay on the ghost killing?
I feel I'm skeptical. I feel it's medical. Some sort of food or airborne something.
All right. So let's see, what was the other one? Alcatraz ghost, we're saying yay on the ghost?
Yes, that one's thumbs up.
All right, what about the Hammersmith ghost that jumped out of the way?
Hammersmith Ghost that jumped out of the way. I think that was a whole lot of making excuses for their own behavior. But I still am very, very entertained by the fact that this ghost felt the need to move out of the way more.
Just, miss me. Sorry, I just see like a full-on cartoon, like, you miss me, Scooby-Doo moment. All right, what about the aged laborer, the guy that got scared to death? Are we saying yay or nay ghost?
I would say yay. I mean, definitely can get scared to death. And it's happening in the same area. Yes, we could have that Black Widow type of the traveler. That's a definite possibility. But to be scared and in that moment, putting himself down to die, there was a ghost that did show with me. Explainable way a ghost could kill a person.
I do like that also the dead guy made a point to say, it was me, I fell, I'm dead, and then that was it. So he at least wrapped it up for himself. All right, and then the last one, the Hinterkaifeck farm murder. We're saying no on that
that's
one?
A murder.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was our
totally
grisly home invasion. Okay, so we're at 75% ghost, so that's good.
Hell yeah.
Woohoo, that's a positive ghost result. So that's an awesome end to this show. So we're going to go with positive ghost results. And thank you, Mary, for chatting ghost deaths with me. I appreciate it.
Hey, we're on such a roll. I choose to believe in Bigfoot, too.
Woohoo! I got big feet. All right, everyone. This is Rebecca, and I will see you guys in the shadows.